Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Irons United for our test show for Gift of the Gab. We're using some new software, so we're bringing it to you to see if this is going to work tonight. Short and sweet, get your comments in below. Let us know your thoughts on what we are saying. Of course, I am Anton. I am joined by Stel, who is over there. Stel, how are you, my friends?
Bit cold, but all right, mate.
Yeah.
Tired.
I don't think you're going to be as cold as what I am up here in Scotland. Anyway, of course, we're here. It's going to be more of a test show, to be honest. So we're just wanting to see what this stream is like, if people are happy with what we're actually bringing to you for content, etc. But, you know, the main topic of conversation, we are going to keep this to about 10 minutes because we are coming to later in the night. We have been planning this pretty much most of the night. But anyway, the main topic of conversation is obviously West Ham's form and, of course, Pellegrini, injuries to players. So I know everyone has probably watched Stel's West Ham Weekly, but still, I mean, West Ham can't really afford to sack Pellegrini, can they?
Well, no, not financially they can't, no. Because apparently that will cost something like £20 million in compensation.
Yeah.
Which I'd rather they use, if they've got that sort of money to spend on letting the manager and his backroom staff go, I'd rather they use that money and buy a player or two, to be honest with you. You know, so no, financially we can't afford it. I don't think it's, I actually genuinely don't think it's the right time to let Pellegrini go. He's got to turn it round, you know, and as it stands, you know, if we just avoid relegation this season, I think at the moment it's the best we can do. It's terrible, isn't it? But yeah, no, we can't afford.
Do you honestly believe that still? Do you honestly believe it is a relegation battle?
Well, you know what? I mean, the next four games are Spurs, Wolves, Chelsea and Arsenal. Now, if we don't get much out of those, by Christmas we'll be in the bottom three. You know, I know we've also got Southampton away, and that's not an easy game either. You know, so the next 5 games are going to be quite telling. And, you know, what are we? Are we 2 or 3 points above the relegation zone? I know, so it's only going to take another defeat and other teams below us to get reasonable results. Yeah. And you know, it's going to be a tough one. And, you know, who's going to want to get us in the bottom 3 any more than bloody Spurs? You know, they'd love it. Wouldn't that be the irony after we've stuck it to them so many times in the past? You know, of all the bloody teams that we're playing next, who could actually put us in the bottom 3 of Spurs?
We're 5 points from the bottom 3, sitting 16.
Okay, so we're lucky. We're all right. It won't be Spurs. Okay.
Yeah. Do you think? I mean, is there enough players in our squad? Do we, you know? I know we've now got injuries to Lanzini. I mean, how disappointing is that injury to West Ham? I mean, I think they've mixed opinions throughout the season on Lanzini. Yeah. In my opinion, he started the season really well. He's
not really shown much form lately, has he? But then again, who has out of the team?
Yeah.
You know, so I actually think it's going to force us to try and play a different type of game.
Yeah.
By having Lanzini out, you know, as quite a few of us have been crying out for Anderson to play in the middle of the park. You know, there's talk about, you know, who might come in, whether we bring back some loan signings or whether we utilise the squad we've got, whether we utilise some of our under-23s. It might force Pellegrini to start really thinking quite seriously about the squad beyond the senior squad. Mm-hmm. And there's a possibility of, I mentioned that he should consider maybe Connor Coventry coming into the middle of the park. Other fans have talked about bringing Nathan Holland in. We can't actually wait for if he decides to bring Diangana back from loan, that's not till January. So we can't wait till then. He's got to make changes now. So it's going to force him to make changes. And if Noble is out as well, I think Pellegrini is going to start having to dig deep into his squad. And please God, I hope it's not Sanchez, because he's definitely not the answer. Because our team is slow enough as it is. Sanchez is a snail compared to everybody else that we've got at the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a shame because it depletes our it depletes our squad by having Lanzini out, but he hasn't really shown much, to be honest.
I think, the biggest issue, and it probably stems throughout most West Ham fans, is the consistency in team selection, the consistency in tactical decisions. And yes, you can have players that we're going to miss, etc. But like you said, still already we as fans are talking about a lot of the younger players and giving them a chance. But realistically, Pellegrini's not shown any sign of going to be doing that. There are players there, like you think to yourself, you've just discussed it. Anderson, what is it going to take for Pellegrini to play or just give consistency to team selection, like not playing Zabaleta? It's not that people are digging Zabaleta out, but it's not the right decision. Like, it's blatantly not the right decision. Every fan in that stadium looked at pretty much the choice of when Zabaleta keeps getting announced. Then you keep listening to the pundits who are saying the same. Why is he constantly getting chosen?
Yeah. It's odd, isn't it? I kind of defended it when he brought Zabaleta on for the Sheffield game. I kind of defended that by saying, Sheffield are going to be a physical team, and he maybe he thought that the likes of Zabaleta would be more up for a physical game. Mm-hmm. But then when he picked him for the Newcastle game, that was a surprise.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, where are you going with this? Because Ryan Fredericks didn't look like he had done much wrong. He wasn't great, but then again, what player has been? Mm-hmm. There's been no player apart from Snodgrass that have kind of shown any work in the past few weeks. So it was a kind of a surprise. I think we said it the other day. He seems to want to make changes for the sake of making changes, and sometimes you can understand the change. If he thinks he's picking certain players for a certain style of play, but then when he consisted with Zabaleta for the Newcastle game, it was everybody just said, "Well, why?" And poor Zabaleta was so found out against their Newcastle's number 10. I don't know what his name, Saint Laurent or whatever his name is. Yeah. And it shouldn't have happened, should it? So Pellegrini's decision making sometimes can be a little bit erratic at the best of times, I think. And you're right. There's no consistency. There's no. He keeps dropping players like. And I know we have this stupid banter about Ogbonna, etc. But even him, there was a table shown for the first 6 games with Ogbonna in, and then the last 6 games or whatever with Ogbonna out, or however many. And we've conceded almost double the amount of goals without him in the team. Yeah. And that's not because Ogbonna's our great saviour. It's just because Ogbonna's got, even though he's not a consistent player, the one thing that Ogbonna can kind of do pretty well is he can head the ball away, in the 18-yard box. And we don't have a player like that. Diop is the tall, lanky git, but his heading skills aren't all that. Yeah. We have Creswell marking taller players, and then we can see goals and wonder why. So it's his consistency or his inconsistency of who gets picked. That's what doing has been.
There's articles. West Ham are under the media spotlight in general. Always are, always will be. But right now, I suppose we're under the radar. In the spotlight because from the start of the season, moving aside the Manchester City game, people were talking about this style of football West Ham are playing. We're doing really well. And then recently, a well-known Sky Sports put on an analysis. I don't know if you read it still, where they discussed everything to do with West Ham. And this is a kind of rundown of what they explained West Ham. So West Ham are without a Premier League win since September the 22nd, run of 6 games. So where have things gone wrong for West Ham? Since moving joint third with a 2-0 win over Manchester United, West Ham have conceded 13 goals, scored only 6 and slumped to 16th in the Premier League table. Pellegrini is saying it's a very difficult moment, but we have to perform as a team, which is kind of pretty much most of the comments he's constantly saying. And in this moment, we have a lot of poor performances from a lot of players, and now we're trying to recover not only the results, but the trust too. The Hammers' dip in form was sparked by Pellegrini electing to field an under-strength team in the Carabao Cup against Oxford United. So this is me kind of bringing it back to where it kind of started to go wrong, where we were thrashed 4-0. Let's not forget, that side should never have been thrashed, that score. Roberto has struggled to replicate anything remotely like what we're used to in the back line. And if you look at the stats, Fabianski made more saves, 149, than any other goalkeeper in the Premier League last season, while only Liverpool's Alisson, 77, had a higher save percentage than Fabianski of those goalkeepers who were ever present last term. So, I mean, losing Fabianski was obviously a massive, massive, downside. But, I mean, if you get a chance, I mean, I could go on here all night. They're saying here, is a summer of poor recruitment starting to bite? I mean, even Sky Sports analysis they talk about Sebastian Haller. They talk about how he was so effective last season at Frankfurt, playing as the focal point of a three-pronged attack.
Exactly. Yeah.
And every analysis is coming out pointing to one thing: tactics, decisions, consistency.
Well, let's go through a couple of them. First of all, Roberto has proven to be so poor, unbelievably poor, that far worse than any of us could have imagined, which kind of proves that Fabianski is not only a good keeper, but we've become so reliant on him, plus the fact that Fabianski in goal has managed to paper over a hell of a lot of cracks that we knew have been there for a number of seasons. Last season we conceded 55 goals, which was the most any team in the top 10 had conceded. The season before, I think it was something like 64 goals, and the season before that was even more, something like 69 goals. So we know that there's been a problem in defence for not just now, not just last season, but for a good number of seasons, right up to the point when Bilic was in charge. And even then before that. And I can now understand why a lot of people would have said I would have given Moyes a chance, give him a bit of money and see what he could have done. I get that now. I didn't get it back then because I kept thinking glory, and Pellegrini, and he's won the league and all that sort of stuff. So Fabianski is absolutely vital for us. And without him, we've been absolutely poor. But that means our defence has remained poor and has gotten worse because we've got an even worse keeper in goal. So not only is our defence bad in the first place, our defence is now even worse. And I've said, and I think you and many others have said before, when we were looking at the transfer window in the summer, we were all saying we need a centre back, we need a left back, we need another holding midfielder or a box to box midfielder, and we need a striker. We haven't got any of that. We didn't bring any of those in. We bought and the players that we have brought in, we bought 2 free keepers, of which I reckon we're going to find out what the third keeper's like.
Yeah,
David Martin, because I think he will play against Spurs. We've got 2 free keepers. We've realised that one of them is pretty poor, for want of a better description. We've got 2 players that aren't making the first team for one reason or another. We've got Cardozo, who we were led to believe was first team ready, and then Pellegrini came out and went, no, he's not. He's only going to barely make the under-23s. Who else did we sign? We signed Haller, but we signed Haller. Now, I've said recently, Haller's not a number 9. Haller will play. He had 2 strikers ahead of him that he was playing off. So he was playing kind of in the pocket behind 2 strikers. We're now using him as a number 9, which is not his role. And he doesn't have any support. So no wonder. And anyone that criticises Haller, I think, is kind of wrong, because it's not Haller's fault that he's been put in a role that it's not that it's alien to him, but he hasn't got the support. So yeah, and now it goes on to tactics. We don't have the right tactics. So Pellegrini sees this week in, week out. We know he's not going to play anything different in the back line than 4. Fair enough. If he's not going to change that, he's got to change it further up the field. So he should do a 4-3-3 or a 4-4-2, because the 4-2-3-1 doesn't work. It hasn't worked, and it doesn't work. And all he's trying to do is he's changing players, but he's not changing the tactics. So he's stuck on his tactics, and he's going, this is what we're going to play. Now I'm going to fit the players into my lineup, rather than going, right, Anderson should be playing in through the middle. What is
it that goes through his head, though? What do you think it is that goes through? I mean, for me, it's quite a noticeable, for me, there's a few tactical decisions that Pellegrini can make that are very in my opinion, easy to see that I think, in my opinion, could change a game for the benefit of West Ham.
Yeah.
But Pellegrini doesn't do it. Now, this is where my concern lies. If all the fans see it, all of the pundits see it, there's articles getting written every single week about it, and Pellegrini still continues to move forward, it really does start to fall. You know, people are calling for the board's head when things are starting to be. But, I mean, let's be realistic still. It's going to cost West Ham, what, £16 million if we wanted to sack him? It's going
to cost 16 to 20 million to get rid of him and his backroom staff.
They ain't doing it. They ain't going to do that.
As I said, mate, if we've got 16 to 20 million to burn, go out and buy some bloody players.
Yeah.
You know, start filling these gaps. Yeah, and I can't believe I'm going to say this. Even now, I would have started to say, in the summer we should have maybe brought in a veteran centre back. You know, in the summer we should have, like Evans or someone like that. You know, in the summer maybe we should. You know, and I don't never advocate us buying old players. You know, I always think that we should buy young, hungry players. You can galvanise them together, get them to work well. But we have no backbone in our team. Our backbone is, you know, we're relying on Fabianski, who's out injured. We're relying on a young Declan Rice. We're relying on Allaire, and that's really our backbone. There is no other backbone. If you look at other teams, they've all got two decent centre backs, two decent midfielders, and one or two strikers, and obviously with the keeper. And we're missing three of those. You know, we're missing three players. You know, Fabianski being out is a tragedy, but it's not just, you know, it's not just the fault of Roberto. He's been calamitous. Don't get me wrong. He's been calamitous, but you know, you should have a decent backline to.
But you should. That's what it comes down to, recruitment at the end of the day as well. It's like, again, something else that's highlighted is the fact that we've got Hasilos, who has found some quality players, but when it comes to, like we've always said, it's like West Ham do 75% of the business they need to do, and it's like we're so close. Like, it's a little bit like if we just spent that extra money that's needed. I'm trying to use it as a prime example of what something you would do. It's like you go buy a car and you get the option, and the car's amazing at the time, then you get the option of the service plan, but you think, no, I'm gonna, if I get the service plan, it's going to add on £10 or £15 a month. But the benefit of the service plan is it keeps you protected. You put it into the car garage and your service plan, you know, it's like that. West Ham just never go that next step to bring in the final bit of quality, the final piece of the jigsaw that they need. And that final piece of the jigsaw is probably realistically another, what, 50, 60 million pound expenditure?
Well, it is going to be now, but I think we could have done it differently. I get why other teams now buy or bring in, you know, free experienced veterans in order to bolster their squads. You know, Evans is playing. You know, I never thought Johnny Evans would continue to play decently, but he's playing decently. Yeah. You know, and that, I think that's the thing. If we the only players that we've really bought have been, you know, first team have been Fornals and Allaire. And Fornals can't find his feet for love nor money, and Allaire is being isolated. You know, so when it goes to the, you know, when we look at the players we bought in over the summer, all of a sudden you do start to question two free keepers who aren't, well, let's hope David Martin's worth his weight in gold, but, you know, two free keepers, Cardozo, who's a future player rather than a player that we thought was meant to be for the first team. So basically, we've only really bought two players, you know, who are making the first team. Fornals and Allaire. Allaire's being not utilised properly, and Fornals just cannot play a decent game to save his life. So our selection, our summer spending, all of a sudden seems quite poor, really. Yeah. You know, and I don't know. I know Huselos is meant to be in charge, director of football or whatever he's called, and he's meant to be in charge of purchases. But we also do know in the background that Sullivan hasn't stopped putting his finger in the pie. And doing deals here as well. So it's all a bit of a mystery, you know. But you're right. We're all crying out for a spine of the team. We're all crying out for another centre back. Pellegrini took the chance and said, "I'm going to see how it goes with Reed." Where is he? He's made one under-23 appearance, and now he's over at New Zealand, playing with the New Zealand or in the New Zealand squad. It's like you can't rely on Reed. You can't rely on the backup players that we've currently got. You can't rely on Sanchez. Good God, I hope we don't see Sanchez against Spurs. We'll get fucking annihilated if we do.
Yeah.
And Ayeti. Oh yes, I forgot about him. Ayeti hasn't proved to be the type of player that. So our purchasing over the summer has been bad. We've not built on. It's kind of reminiscent to the Bilic's second season, when we were in the last season at the Bowling, and we had a few players here, there, and everywhere, and everything was being galvanised quite well. And then when we moved to the new stadium, that's the time when we should have bought smart, in order to take the next step on, and we didn't buy smart. Instead, we bought average players, and we filled the squad with average players who really didn't sort of materialise, which was a real shame. And we've done it again with Pellegrini. So is it board influence, or is it bad purchasing by Pellegrini? Maybe it's a bit of both. Maybe it's a bit of both. I don't know.
Well,
have you got something in the middle of the screen there?
Yeah, like I said to everyone at the start of this show, this is a test. So we are testing literally everything with this software. So what I've managed to do is actually bring up the article that I was talking about, which actually a well-known brand have put out on West Ham. So it's just letting you see where you can go and find it and see the comments that Pellegrini is saying. But it's letting you also know what a lot of the current stats are, etc. So I'm going to put up the actual stats that they brought to the attention, which is West Ham's form from the first 6 to the last 6. I don't know if you can see that clearly, but in the current season. So we won 3 games with 11 points, scoring 8 goals, conceding 7, 3 clean sheets, 27 shots on target. Shot conversion rate is 11%, possessions 46.5%. And then you look at the last 6 where we've won none. We've got 2 points, scored 6, conceded 13, no clean sheets, shots on targets, shots on target faced. So there's a lot higher than what they were before. And our shot conversion rate is a lot lower as well. Possession's gone dramatically higher. So I don't know. It's like the heads have dropped. Sorry, guys. Like I said, I'm just letting you mess about with the software just to show you what we can do with this new software. Like we said, this is a test. So if you like it, let us know.
If whoever's watching, we've come out in, yeah, mate. It is like a bit like Brexit, and we're sick of talking about how bad things are as well.
Yeah. So that comment came from one of our viewers just now, and we've got the option where we can actually put the comments that people are saying up on the screen. So right now, I think Martin's come and said, to be honest, West Ham is like Brexit, like you said, still sick of talking about nothing. Nothing ever changes. But someone else is coming in here saying, let's be honest, this is just a normal season for us. Only difference is we broke our transfer window. The rest is normal. Poor team, relegation battle, lots of negativity around the club.
See, I'll be honest. I actually, even though things are bad, I actually don't think we're going to be in a relegation fight. Here's the irony with West Ham: is we've got we've got Spurs, Wolves, Chelsea, Arsenal in our next 4 games.
Brilliant, still, thanks.
We'll beat Spurs. We'll lose against Wolves. We'll draw against Chelsea.
Renaissance.
But that's what happened. And then the game after was South, and they'll spank us. That's what happened.
Yeah. There's many things that need to change. Maybe the international break came at the right time for West Ham. Maybe it's a time to sit back, recoup, and surely to God, Pellegrini's got to make. Tottenham, they've not having a great season. They've had a little bit of form though the last couple of games, but we'll come to you with our preview closer to the time. But before we round this up, still, what do you do for Tottenham? Do you unleash Anderson through the middle? Do you bring back Ogbonna into the central defence? Do you give David Martin a chance? There's
that was the other mistake he made, mate. The other mistake he made was he knew Fabianski was out, and he changed 3 of his back 4 for the first game after Fabianski. which is like that's tantamount to suicide, isn't it? You know, you've lost your goal, your number one goalie, and then you decide to bring in Masuaku, Zabaleta, and Balbuena with the ops. So basically, you've changed 4 of your back 5 in the game straight after Bournemouth, which was like no wonder we were gonna suffer. And what he should have done is he should have said to the back 4, you stay as you are. You know, Creswell, Fredericks, Ogbonna and Diop, because you've been playing, you know, together, you know, in the team for the past 5-6 games. You're going to stay as you are, and you're going to support the new keeper we've got. But instead, he went off and changed more. And ever since then, it's been chaotic. It's been, you know, and there's this rumor about, you know, there's lack of trust in the chain. You know, there's no surprises. No one really knows. So it's really, really difficult. Hang on, Tim. To be fair, Sanchez is a decent passer, and Rice has been isolated. Would you honestly play Sanchez, Tim? Please say no,
mate. Listen, still, let's round this up. I hope you have enjoyed our new. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed our new. I mean, it's been a bit of a. I'm blaming VAR for our poor season so far. I tell you something, still, at the beginning of the season, I genuinely said the following comment. I thought VAR would play into our hands. I really, really thought it would, and it's gone the complete and other opposite direction.
Only if VAR can start disallowing every single goal scored against us, then brilliant. Otherwise,
the funny thing is, if VAR hadn't existed, we may have actually won some more points this season. That's the thing. So it's just one of those things. This is one of those things. Yeah. Listen, please, like I said, make sure you're subscribing to the channel. Make sure you hit the comments in below. Let us know your thoughts on what we've done tonight. Short and sweet, 20, nearly 30 minutes of a gift to the gab. We will come back to you a little bit more over the next coming weeks with some new content. Like I said, we're trying out some new software just to make sure we can bring you better quality videos, etc. So let us know your thoughts on what we've done, and any last kind of points you want to make, Stel, before we go.
Well, I would say let's relax this weekend. I'm going out a couple of days by myself in preparation for Saturday week, because that's going to be a nail biter. You know, a 12:30 kick-off nail biter. You're coming down, aren't you?
Yeah, I'll be down.
Good. So we'll have a few drinks after the game as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, like I said, get commenting below. He's been Stel. I've been Anton. This is Irons United. Come on, you Irons.